Compliment of the season. Stories for the holiday. This whole thing started 3 weeks before Christmas in 2021. I was on IG and received a DM from who I thought was my cousin named Abel. He DM'd me saying that he was in trouble and needed my help. I asked him what was going on and if he was still coming to the family Christmas party, as our get-together on Christmas Eve we've been doing it for decades. Abel said yes, he would be there, but that his bank account was compromised and the bank had frozen his account until he can verify his ID in person. He said he was stranded and his phone was running out of time. He asked me if I could get him an iTunes card so he can keep his phone on, so he can fix his bank issue and pay me back. I told him I was at work, but we can talk after work and I would give him a call. He told me no, that because he doesn't have a new card, he can't accept phone calls, and he's sending this message using free Wi-Fi from a friend's house. Now, I'd never used iTunes, and I was unsure how they really worked during this time. I ended up asking him what kind of card, and he sent me a picture of the card and what it looks like. He asked me to get a $100 card, and he would pay me back when we met at Christmas. I told him after work I'll look into it, but I'm very busy at the moment. He said okay and stopped talking to me. Later that night he messaged me again asking if I was done with work and if I got him the card. He was a little pushy, and I told him I have to get the kids ready for their practice and we could talk later. He told me he was suffering without the card, and I told him, well, then have your wife pick one up. He said he couldn't, as her name is on his account and they can't access their money. Well, I knew something was fishy at this point, as my cousin is not married. I ended up blocking him, or who this person was pretending to be my cousin. I thought nothing of it until our family Christmas gathering and Abel was there. I told him what happened and he was quite dumbfounded by it. He said he wouldn't know of anyone who would pretend to be him, and he swore it wasn't him, which I already knew. That's when our Aunt Lydia approached Abel and asked him if he has the money that she lent him for his iTunes card. Abel looked at her blankly and wasn't sure what to say to it, as it wasn't him who had asked her. We had to explain things to Lydia, and she told us that a profile on IG approached her saying it was Abel and his bank account was frozen and he needed an iTunes card and that he would pay her back at the family Christmas party. So she bought him a card and sent it to him via DM on IG. Abel was horrified at this point, as Lydia really didn't have the money to begin with. We all felt bad for her and we ended up chipping in to get her the $100 to pay her back, even though it wasn't Abel who had asked her for the card. That's when my brother jumped into the conversation and he said he was approached by Abel on IG, or someone pretending to be him. And he ended up blocking the profile, as he asked this Abel person some personal family questions, and this person simply couldn't answer them. We never figured out who this person was, and we can only assume it was a scammer, but it certainly caught all of us off guard, and it was the topic of our family Christmas gathering. We all agreed on a code word when we DM each other via social media in the future. Story 2. When Harry first messaged me, it was through FB. He replied to one of my comments on a public group and said my profile picture was beautiful. He wanted to get to know me better and thought to send me a private message. His profile was that of a man in a military uniform. His About section said he was working for the United Nations peacekeeping in Yemen. He told me that he was a widow and his wife died of kidney cancer 10 years prior. He had a son named Albert, who was 13 years old and away at a UK boarding school. Harry said he was from Florida, but he had a home in the UK, a home in California, and a home in Miami, Florida. He said he was on contract for the United Nations to peacekeep for 3 months and would be home mid-December. Once he completed his contract, he would retire, and he was looking for someone to love him and accept his son. He asked if I was single, and at the time I was. I had just ended a 3-year relationship and was not really looking, but I kept an open mind, and I have no kids. I live in Georgia. Harry told me that my profile picture was so attractive, and he said he really wanted us to get to know each other more better. He sent me a few pictures of himself in Messenger, some in uniform and some in civilian clothing. He also sent me a picture of his son, his car, and his house in Miami. He told me he thought of selling his homes if he found the right woman and settled down with her. I told him that Georgia is a beautiful state, and I live in the woods, far from the city life. I live about an hour to the nearest store, and I told him how beautiful and peaceful it is out here in the country. He asked if I had Hangouts, and I wasn't sure what it was, and he told me that my phone should have it, and he helped me to figure out how it works. He said it was easier for us to talk on Hangouts, and so we chatted on there instead. He told me the story of him and his late wife, and how she died and he couldn't save her, and the doctors tried so hard. It was certainly a sad story, and I felt so bad for him. We started chatting often on Hangouts, sometimes for hours. He shared his ideas, and once he retired, he wanted to buy some houses and make them rentals. And I told him that's very difficult business to endeavor. He wanted a partner to marry and help him with his business. Well, I let Harry know that I loved living in the country, and I had no intentions of moving to a big city or living that city life. He said that he understood, and he had hoped that we could grow together and meet after his contract was ended. He asked for my phone number, which I gave him, and I felt like he was friendly enough and seemed okay. I enjoyed our chats, and he had asked me what I did for work. Well, I was semi-retired, and I worked selling my crafts online. I'd worked most of my life, saved, bought some land, bought a mobile home, and lived out my days here in the woods. I'm happy here. He asked for my website. Well, I make rings and other custom jewelry, memorial rings for those whose loved ones have passed away, and I've done this for many years. As the weeks kept going on, we talked nearly every day. Harry called me a few times, but the connection was poor, as he said he was in Yemen and the internet and phone wasn't working like it normally would in the States. And I was keeping an open mind, but I wasn't planning on falling for someone. He was very sweet, though, attentive and kind. He always listened. He kept asking me what I was doing for Christmas, and I told him I wasn't totally sure, as my distant family live in Kentucky, and I had thought to visit for Christmas, but I didn't know yet. The holiday season is busy for my online store. I had a lot of orders to fill, and if I'm being honest, I spent a lot of time talking to Harry, and I fell behind on some of my orders, and I told him this. We would talk often, late into the night, and I wouldn't get any work done the next day. He told me he had to finish up his contract, but Harry suggested that he come to visit me for Christmas. We could spend time together alone and get to know each other in person. And while it sounded great, I was cautious of meeting someone at my home that I really didn't know. I suggested to him that maybe he get himself an Airbnb or a hotel while he visits in a nearby town, and I could come and meet him, bring him dinner, and we could have lunch date. Well, Harry wasn't too happy about this, and he asked why I don't trust him. I told him it's not that I don't trust him, but he's still a stranger to me. He didn't like this, and he told me that he poured his heart out to me, and he wants nothing more than to be with me forever. It was a bit of an odd conversation, as he was extremely emotional. He even called me crying, asking why I didn't love him. I told him I have love for him, but we need to meet in order for it to blossom into actual love. Harry agreed and said he'd look into a hotel. He then said he was wondering if I could help him out, as his bank account was frozen until his contract ends, and he wanted to get his son something for Christmas, as he wouldn't see him for Christmas. And I asked Harry why he wouldn't see his son. He said his son has studies to complete over the holiday, and he has made the sacrifice to visit me instead. I felt guilty, but at the same time I did want to meet this man. I'd been spending day and night chatting to him. He asked if I could buy a $100 Steam card for his son for Christmas and email the photo of the scratched off card to his son. I was hesitant, but then thought, yeah, I can do this. He told me his son likes to play video games when he's not studying and would love a Steam card. I'd never heard of him. He gave me his son's email address. I told Harry I don't feel comfortable emailing his son. It's too soon. So I ended up buying the card and giving it to Harry in a text message. He thanked me and said his son was so happy, and happy that his father has found a wonderful woman. He said his son asked if I would be his new mother. This threw me off, as I didn't expect something like that. It's too fast. So I told him that would have to come in time, that we need to meet first. As it got closer to Christmas, Harry said he was coming and told me he was having issues, though, booking his flight, as his account had not paid out yet. I told him he would need to get a flight soon, as the Atlanta airport is super busy, and flights sell out fast, especially leading up to Christmas, as do hotel rooms and Airbnbs. Harry said he was so distraught, as he didn't expect his contract payment to be delayed, and now they told him it'll be delayed till after New Year due to the company he's having to deal with. I told him that he needs to figure it out. Harry called me so upset, saying he didn't want to lose me, and he wanted to be there for Christmas. Well, I found a couple of hotels that had available rooms for the week of Christmas in a bigger town near me. I told Harry about them, and he became upset, saying he can't access his pay until after January. I told him I can book the hotel for him and he could just pay me after he got here, as he was expected to stay till around the 5th. He told me that he had a booking agent through his work that could book the hotel, but he needed the money first. I told him no, I can go ahead and book it. Just send me a copy of your license so I can do the online booking, and I can pay for it. Harry sent me his military United Nations ID. It looked odd, and I asked him if he has a driver's license or a passport. He said no, that once they enter Yemen on contract, the government holds their documents until they finish their contract due to all the dangers in the country and the possibility of their documents being taken. He said all things are done through the booking agent when people leave their location. They have a booking agent do it for them. He said he would need $2,000 for the flight, and then whatever the hotel would cost. The hotel I found for 2 weeks was nearly $1,000. So in total, Harry said he would need $3,500, as the booking agent charges a fee and international tax. I told him I can just book everything, and once he gets ready to leave Yemen, he should get his documents back. He can board the flight and everything. Harry said no. He has to show proof of his flight prior to getting his documents back, and that they don't give his documents back until he can show he's booked a flight. He said all the other people have already booked for Christmas, and he is the only one who is not, and he begged me to send money to the booking agent, and he would pay me back when he got here. Looking back now, he had an answer for everything and an excuse for everything. I asked him where the agent is in Yemen, and he said the agent works out of Washington, D.C., and I would have to bank transfer the money. He gave me the name of a man in Washington, D.C., and his bank information. I ended up transferring $3,500, and Harry said he couldn't wait for us to be together, and he said he wanted to marry me. I guess looking back, seeing that I had to send money to Washington, D.C. made it seem official at the time. A few days before Christmas Eve, Harry was set to fly from Yemen to London, then to Atlanta, and I was to pick him up at the airport. He messaged me when he arrived in London and said he was waiting for his flight to board to Atlanta. There was a lot of noise in the background when he called, and he said his phone was dying as it was nearly out of minutes. He asked me if I could go buy a $100 iTunes card so he could keep his phone on. And I told him I could, as I was going to the grocery store to stock up for Christmas food, as I was going to cook him a really nice Christmas meal. I got him the card and I texted it to him. He said thank you and that he was waiting for his flight. Well, I didn't hear from him for a few hours, and then I received a phone call from who I thought was Harry, but it wasn't. It was a man who identified himself as Jason Smith, lead investigations officer for Heathrow Airport. He said Harry's phone had been confiscated and he was being detained due to having an invalid passport and not claiming a tax fee on his luggage, which contained gold bars. I was confused and I asked to speak to Harry. They told me they could put him on the phone for only a moment, and they put him on. Harry was crying, saying he was trying to take gold bars from Yemen into the country so we could sell them and start our life together. He wanted things financially secure so I wouldn't worry. I told him that was stupid, and he told me that he needed my help and that he loved me. Then Jason took the phone and said that Harry was going to prison if he didn't pay the fine for carrying over $1 million of gold in his luggage. Jason told me the fine was $20,000 and I would have to make the payment to a UK bank account. He gave me the name of a woman in the UK to wire the money to. If I didn't do it, then Harry would be in prison for a decade and fined millions of dollars. I told Jason to put Harry back on, but he refused. He said send the money, and he was extremely aggressive and mean. I asked for his supervisor's name and number, and he told me not to question him, and he can see I don't love my husband Harry. I told Jason that Harry is not my husband, and we've not even met yet. Jason became agitated with me and asked if I'm sending the cash or not. He was extremely pushy, and if he was an agent, he was extremely unprofessional. I asked for his full information and his supervisor's name and that I was calling the airport myself. Jason said I make very stupid mistakes, and he hung up on me. I tried to message Harry but got no response. I ended up finding the number for Heathrow Airport and was put in touch with someone in their security department. I explained the situation and they urged me to contact police as it sounds like a scam, and they simply don't operate that way. He also gave me the number for the UK fraud squad and urged me to reach out to them. I felt panic and sadness at the same time. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. Then this Jason person messaged me on SMS and sent me a photo of Harry supposedly in prison. I looked at the photo and could tell it was a fake. It was poorly done. I've enclosed the photo for your viewers. I told Jason he was full of it, and he told me I was foolish and that Harry will be in prison forever. I told him good, and that I was contacting the police. He laughed in text, and I ended up removing Hangouts from my phone and blocking Harry on FB. I ended up spending Christmas alone. I didn't even reach out to my family as I felt so silly. It was the first and last Christmas I let a man ruin it for me. I never heard from Harry again, and I reported the bank account I sent the $3,500 to, but never heard anything more on it. I'm wiser now and know what to look out for. Story 3. This happened to me on Christmas Eve. I met a man named Kevin on FB. I was in a parents group for single moms and dads. Kevin said he was a single father after his wife died in a car accident 3 years ago, and he was very sad this Christmas. He actually posted this on the group page. He said his son was upset too. I decided to be kind and private message him. We started chatting, and he told me that his son was very upset as they couldn't celebrate Christmas this year because Kevin said he was deployed right before Christmas and his son was staying with his sister and they were not treating him very well, and he wanted to come home to be with his son, but couldn't. He said his son was 10 years old. Well, I told him I would keep him in my prayers, him and his son, and that maybe next year would be better. He asked if I was single, and I told him I'm not interested in online dating. He kept telling me he was deployed in a dangerous mission for the Army and that his son felt so alone. He said all his son wanted was a Steam card to play video games, and since he's deployed, he can't access his bank account to buy his son a card. He asked me if I would be willing to buy his son a Steam card for $100, and he could pay me back once he got home from his deployment in 3 months. I don't know if it was because of it being Christmas or what, but I told him I could. I ended up going to the store on Christmas Eve and buying one of these Steam cards. He told me I could email it to his son and gave me his son's email address. I asked if his son would get it and not some other family member, but he told me his son only had access to the email address as he emails his son daily to check on him while he's deployed. I took a picture of the card and emailed it to his son. I said it was from his daddy, as I didn't want his son wondering who I was. Kevin thanked me and said he would take me to dinner when he got back to the States. He said he was from Texas. I live in Mississippi. I told him I'm glad his son could enjoy and told him Merry Christmas. It was a few days later when Kevin added me as a friend. He then started asking me for another Steam card, saying his sister had stolen the card from his son, and his son was crying, and that he, Kevin, was trying to get an emergency leave to see about getting his son a nanny to watch him instead. He said he applied for a leave, but the Army required $1,000 for the emergency leave. I told Kevin that's a lot of money, and I hope he's able to find a way, and I was sorry, but I can't help, and I can't buy another Steam card. He said okay, and he quit talking to me. Kevin then friended some of my family members online, including my own sister. He sent my sister a message saying that he was my future husband, and we've been dating for months online. And I don't know if he thought my sister and I never talked, but my sister called me right away asking who or what this man was. I told her the story, and she told me what he said. I ended up telling Kevin off in chat, and he never responded. My sister and I both blocked him on social media. Well, come to find out, this Kevin sent friend requests to all of my and her friends and our family. We literally had to message everyone and alert them to block this guy. He tried to message our mother, grandmother, our other sister, and cousins in chat asking for financial help and stating that he was my future husband. It was so wild and insane. We think we got all the family to block him and some of my coworkers of mine and my sister's. I never heard from Kevin after I blocked him, but I do get the odd friend request from random male profiles, which is something I'd never had to deal with before. I think it's Kevin or some friend of his. It was amazing how fast this person wormed their way into our network of friends and family. A Christmas lesson learned and weeks of trying to get this Kevin out of our lives. We'd like to thank these people for sharing their stories. Unfortunately, people are very giving during the holiday season, and scammers know this, and they try their best, even if it's to get a gift card from you or big amounts of cash. Always remember, don't send money or gift cards to people you don't know or people you've just met online. Stay safe and block them if it feels like something's wrong. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and take care.